Okay. I think it's pretty clear about how your face is divided into gender. Moving on, I talked to you about iconic signs. The opposite of iconic signs, the signs that aren't iconic, the signs that don't look like what they are representing, are called arbitrary. If you ever need to know. I would like to go over the list of compound signs because I would. This is a pretty good list. It's not a complete list, but pretty good list. Eat. I haven't really explained about the sun. Let me explain about the sun with these signs. The sign for morning and day and things like that all come based on the horizon and the sun coming up over the horizon. So there's your horizon. So morning is sun coming up in the morning. Noon, afternoon, evening, night. Morning, noon, afternoon, evening, all afternoon, all afternoon, all night, all night. So breakfast, lunch, and dinner are eat morning, eat noon, eat night. But they're used so often that in time they have changed and become their own sign. So instead of eat morning, breakfast is eat morning. Breakfast. So you don't have to worry about putting your non-dominant hand inside your shoulder, your elbow for this one. That's the change that it has made. So eat breakfast, lunch, dinner. But as I mentioned, initialization has taken hold of this one, and really because of ease. The signs for breakfast, lunch, and dinner have become popular in American Sign Language. This is continue, keep on, continue. So it was think, continue, and it has morphed in time over time to remember. Remember. Again, as opposed to keep in mind, that kind of remember. Remember as you're going forward, not to do that. That's just keep in mind. Student at one time was learn. You're taking something from the book and putting it into your brain. Learn. Agent. But in time, it has become student. Student. Disagree is just think opposite. I'm not sure exactly why. It hasn't really changed. It's think opposite. So I'm not sure exactly what they're saying here. Son and daughter was boy, baby, and it became son. Girl, baby, daughter, boy, same. This is a sign for same. This and this are the same. But that has morphed into boy, same, brother, sister. Sibling is brother, sister. Brother, sister. Brother, sister. Same thing with parents, only a little easier. Mother, father, the parents. This is a sign for Jesus. Book. Jesus' book. Home is where you eat. Originally, it was home or eat, sleep, home. It morphed over time into home. And this is work. Homework. The agent, affix, you can apply to verbs and adjectives like work, walk, run, America, a melting pot, if you want to call it that. America, that's where it came from. This is a sign for America, American. Initialized signs, I'm not going to worry about that. Let's talk about initialized signs a little bit. I am on page 50. I talked about several different groupings in this list. Can anybody name some of the groupings of signs in this list? Feel free to unmute yourself and just speak. Page 50.
Things like colors.
Okay, colors. Let's talk about that. I didn't even show you some color, so let's talk about that. This is a sign for color or colors. I don't know why. That one's pretty arbitrary, isn't it? And the colors that are on this list: blue, green, purple. It's on the list. Blue, green, purple. Is there anything else me here? Let's do colors while we're talking about colors, though. Orange is like you're squeezing an orange in front of your mouth. Orange. Do it with your little pinky out. It means orange juice. Orange juice. Although a lot of people will do orange juice and finger spill juice. Orange juice. But orange juice. Red has to do with lipstick. red. Pink is an initialized sign from red, and it's with a P. And you use your middle finger on your lip. P, pink. Purple, orange, yellow. That goes back on the list, same as the other ones. Brown is with a B along the side of your lid. And black pretty arbitrary, don't know why. And white, anybody remember white? I've showed you white once or twice before. It's similar to the sign for like, but uses a whole hand. White, white. Any colors that I forgot? Okay, how about anything else? Any other groupings on this list of initialized signs?
Math and science.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. There's two groupings there. Okay, the original sign where it came from is the sign from ASL to calculate or to figure out, to calculate. That's the original ASL sign that's been around forever. And then in the 1970s, initialization came along with the sign systems that I told you about. And so you ended up with algebra, math in general, math, algebra, calculus, geometry, trigonometry. The other grouping that you mentioned is science. This is the sign for science, going way back. And then initialization happened, and we ended up with biology and chemistry. Any other groupings? Yes.
Say royalty?
Sorry, say again?
Royalty?
Yes, exactly. That sign that goes across your torso. So you have king with a K, queen, prince, girl prince. It's sexist. I'm missing anything that I am missing. I think that's about it. Oh, Lord, with an L. And there's one other grouping there of groups of people. This is the original sign for a group of people, but initialization happened to make it class, team, family, society, group, organization. I think that might be it. Another grouping there is signs that go over your heart and have to do with heart things like attitude, personality, character, not the character when it means a role in a play or anything like that, character, when it means personality or added or that kind of thing.
Days of the week.
Exactly. Starts with M. Well, we don't have to start with M, but it has. We're going to Monday, and it can be, for some reason, signed palm in or palm out. It's an extremely rare exception to that rule. Palm in, palm out. It just doesn't matter. Tuesday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Wednesday. You just see it all. Thursday, either with a just H or TH. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, box kind of things are initialized. So you have room with an R, office, box with a B, all right, moving on. I'm on page 51. Under the heading of signs without an English translation, I must say, as a sign language interpreter for the last 40 years, I have a problem with that. I translate from English to ASL and ASL to English all the time, and I have yet to find something without a translation, some way that I can translate. There might not be a direct sign for something that I need, but there's a way that I can explain it, or I can get around it. I can always find a translation. I can always say what I need to say. So I'm not sure why this is labeled signs without an English translation. I totally translate all these signs all the time. And finish touch is one of them. It just, when I see a deaf person sign finish touch, I sign it. I've been there, or I haven't been there, whatever the case is. It just means to have been to a place. Finish touch. Houston. This is the sign for Houston. Finish touch. Houston. Finish touch. A lot of cities, by the way, use this like falling off a cliff sign. So Philadelphia is one of them. It's like you're going across and then falling off a cliff. Philadelphia. Indianapolis. Oh, I'm blanking on this. There's so many cities that do that. And if you live in a small rural area, a lot of times they'll take that idea and use whatever your name of your town is. So I live in Ewing, E-W-I-N-G. So if I were to make up a sign for Ewing, which I don't have to because the school for the deaf in New Jersey is in Ewing. So there is a sign for Ewing because the school. But regardless, if I were to make up a sign, I could just do Ewing. So a lot of CDs use that falling off a cliff. I tend to look at it that way. So finished touch just means, have you ever been to a place, or I had been to a place. Tend to, I'm not sure exactly why this is under no translation. It totally has a translation. The translation is tend to. And it's used, this is the Handshape. And it's used in English as same as we would use it in English. I tend to do something. I tend to shop. I tend to whatever. This is name. Also reputation. And then name shine. If I see a deaf person sign name shine, I have a choice between I'm sorry. A well-known person, the example they give here is Gallaudet. This is the sign for Gallaudet. Or also, or in general, a famous person, or a person with a stellar reputation. Name shine. So name shine. I can't imagine why this is doesn't have a translation, because the translation is, do you mind? Or would you mind? Sign means don't mind. But it's also used to mean, would you mind? And then on page 54, finish. Finish just generally means past tense. It just is a past tense indicator. So you can use it in place of the word then. So I cleaned up, and then got dressed, and then I got in the car, and then I drove to work. All right, so it's just finish. I did something, finish. It just means past tense, or in this case, then. Some other things that, again, I have absolutely no problem with translating these things all the time. I see these things all the time and I translate them. So I'm not sure why she's saying, the author is saying that these things are without an English translation. One of them is true biz. True, this is a sign for true, really, really true, truly, really, yeah, I don't know this. And work, true work. But in American Sign Language, it just means really, 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 really. Really, 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 really. Alphabet, I don't understand why they're saying that. It's just ABC. ABC is the alphabet. Grammar school, I don't get that one either. Elementary, it's an E with a hand over top. Elementary. Middle school, this is a sign for middle. It's using your middle finger. Middle, middle. school. They're not applauding. Deaf people don't like school any better than you do. It's the sign used to be books and papers. Books, papers, books and papers, and in time it just became school. So middle school. Anybody remember the sign for high school? Got that last time? Excellent, excellent. Just HS, high school. Public school. They use mainstream or hearing school. Did anybody remember the sign for hearing as opposed to deaf? Excellent, 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 excellent. Hearing. This is a sign for deaf. Deaf. If you're in a very, very formal situation, deaf people will sign the old-fashioned sign for deaf, which was deaf. Ears closed. Deaf. So if it's a formal situation, a business meeting or something like that, you'll see deaf people sign deaf as opposed to deaf. Hearing. And they will sign public school. We're hearing people, vast majority of people go to school. So hearing school, and this is a sign for mainstream. Mainstream. So that's another option, mainstream school. Oh, I love that. Oh, that is excellent. Why I'm going to hold on for now, I will explain it later, I promise. Sibling, brother, sister, parents, mother, father. Knock it off. This is the sign for finish. I just told you. Finish meaning past tense or then. All right. Knock it off is very similar to that. Finish. Knock it off. And tends to have your facial expression too. Well, four. This is the sign for four. Four. And what for is just 4-4. 4-4. With a questioning look on your face. And so for that kind of question, it's eyebrows down. What for? What for? It's not a yes or no question. Yes or no questions have eyebrows up. Your sister deaf? Eyebrows up. You're asking a question. Is your sister deaf? This is a compound sign. Believe is think, marry. Think, marry. Remember, it talked about marry, one hand coming together with the other hand, marry. Marry. So think, marry is believe, don't believe, or skeptical, don't believe. Also skeptical. This is a sign for wrong, as in right. And this the second sign for brother, sister. Right, wrong. But this is a sign for miss, as in miss anything, misjudge, miscommunicate, well, not misunderstand. This is understand, a light bulb going off. Understand? This is misunderstand. He talks about idioms next. And it's just as saying, you can't take an idiom from one language and put it in another language because it just isn't going to make sense. So if you say the idiom that they use here is it's raining cats and dogs, if you were to be signing it's raining cats and dogs, you would cause a lot of confusion. It just does not translate exactly the same way. What is the sign for it's raining cats and dogs? This is the sign for rain. And this is a sign for it's raining cats and dogs. Okay, you can't do raining cats and dogs. I'm sorry, it just isn't going to work. And most languages have lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of idioms. ASL does not have lots and lots and lots and lots of idioms. They've been really identified as having only one idiom. And even that's not exactly right. This is a sign for train, as in choo-choo, choo-choo train. All right. And the only idiom that ASL has been identified as having is train zoom. So this is the sign for train. So it's already modified. And it just means I've already said that and I'm not going to say it again. You missed your opportunity. And that's the only idiom that ASL has been identified to have. Easy. You only have to learn one. And then next they talk about sign variation, and there is a lot of sign variation. And you'll find sign variation between gender. That is to say, men tend to sign a little differently than women, a little more masculine than women sometimes. And certainly by region. As I mentioned, schools for the deaf are very, very important in language variation because we had originally the school for the deaf in Hartford, Connecticut, and then we got a school for the deaf in Philadelphia, and they each have their own little different variations of sign. And even where I live in Trenton, right outside of Trenton, and there's a school for the deaf here in Ewing, and the school for the deaf for New Jersey. And I am 45 minutes from Philadelphia. And there are huge sign variations between the Philadelphia school and the Trenton school and the area around those places. Any questions about anything? I am on page 59.
The school variations,
Yes.
are they kind of like accents? Like if you go south,
Yes.
because they're saying the same thing, but in a slightly different way.
Exactly. Exactly. Yes. And the only, yes, exactly it. That is exactly it. For example, there's another school for the deaf in Pittsburgh And I have a hard time understanding people from Pittsburgh. It's just, I don't know why. I can understand people from Los Angeles, anywhere, but Pittsburgh gives me a little trouble. They just have a strange accent for me. But a lot of times the difference between one school or one area, region, and another area is the signs themselves. For example, I'll just very, very quickly show you that the one we've had already is Sunday. This is the sign, and I already told you that my sister, who grew up in Philadelphia or went to Philadelphia School for the Deaf, signs Sunday. And a lot of people sign Sunday. Sign variations. All right, I am on page 59. For the purposes of this class, it's really not necessary that you get into phonology and morphology and what it means and how it is all. We'll talk about it, but we don't really need to get into the nitty-gritty of it. If you study this in college, you will need to study all that kind of stuff. But right now, the only thing I want you to learn about phonology is the 5 parameters. And I've mentioned this before, but I'll mention it again. Phonology, the definition of phonology is given in the first sentence there. It is the smallest part of a language that has meaning. So, for example, in English, it's all based on sounds. So one different sound in a word completely changes the word. And the example they use is sad and sod. One slight change completely changes the word. So that's exactly what we're talking about here. One slight change completely changes the meaning. They don't talk about something in the book here that I learned when I was learning ASL, studying it, and that's what we called SASs, which meant size and shape specifiers. And it's a concept that I think you should still, even though it's not in the book, would be very helpful to you to keep in mind. Size and shape specifiers are exactly that. They show you the size and the shape of things. For example, if I'm talking about some kind of container, a glass, a bucket, a bottle, a jar, this means a container, and you would show the size when I sign it originally. I will show the size and the shape of it. So this is showing the top and the bottom, so it's showing more the size. And if I needed to show the shape of it, I would show a cylindrical shape going this way, going that way. It's just showing the size and the shape of things, but that's how you talk about things originally. So if I'm talking about the road, if I'm just talking about traveling and the road that laid out in front of me, here's the road, and I'm driving. Here's the road, I'm driving. Okay, so the side parameters are Handshape, very, very easily. This is a sign for somebody just walking along, minding their own business, just doing their thing. Okay, I was walking along, and I ran across somebody else. I met somebody else. I met my friend. Okay, and this is a sign for two people walking along. It doesn't get much easier than that. One person walking along, two people walking along. Completely changes the meaning of the sign. Another example of different hand shape I showed you earlier, like and white. White is done with your whole hand, but right here on your chest and pulling out from your chest. And like is done with the 8 hand shape, but the movement's exactly the same. The only difference is the hand shape. The second parameter is movement. For example, there's a whole bunch of signs you can do with 2 fingers on each hand. Name, train, salt, as in salt and pepper. This is salt, this is pepper. Salt and pepper, but salt. Chair. Do it twice at least, maybe 3 times. Because if you do it once, it means sit. Sit. And if you're a parent and you're sick of your kids and you just can't take it anymore, sit. You just sit down and shut up. Okay, but the only difference between all those signs is movement. They're all done in the same shape. I'm sorry, in the same place. With very similar hand shape, the difference is movement. Third parameter is palm orientation. And I'm not going to get into I'm not going to get into that any further detail than to say it just means which direction your palm is facing. An example of that would be screwing on the lid of a jar. You have 2 different palm orientations there. One this way, screwing on the lid of a jar. You need to show this to show that this is jar, where the jar is. Fourth parameter is location. I haven't shown you these signs yet, but I'll do it right now. This is a sign done at your forehead for guess, guess. Move it just down a little bit to in front of your nose, and now it means strange or weird. Move it down to your mouth or chin, and it means miss. Not as in miss a ball, which you pretty much act out. Be more like, oh, you missed it. Oh man, it was so cool. It was such a great show. You missed it. Oh, you missed it. Oh, we had a big party. Oh man, you missed it. Okay, guess, strange, miss. The only difference is location. The fifth parameter is non-manual markers. There is a difference between facial grammar and facial expression. Facial grammar is things like questions, where I told you that for a WH question, your eyebrows are down and your body is shifted forward just a little bit. Who, what, where? Eyebrows down. That's facial grammar. If it's a yes, no question, eyebrows up. Your sister? Is that your sister? Eyebrows up. That's facial grammar. This is talking about facial expression, which generally is pretty easy, because you're going to do the emotion or the facial grammar that just makes sense. So if it's sad, sad, or you could sad. It doesn't make sense to do sad. Just as happy as I could possibly be. That just doesn't make sense. I'm conflicting my messages. Okay, so you just have to match happy, sad, disappointed, whatever it is. It's the same as what you spend your whole life making these expressions. Only now you're going to make them on purpose and maybe a little bit bigger than what we do in English. On page 60, they talk about some very common handshapes that come up. And I would just like to talk about that very briefly. It's not necessary that you memorize them. And where it says A, B, C, O, S, 1, 5, that's not necessary for you to even deal with for this course. But just some examples of some of their handshapes here. A V handshape, I already showed you, for example, walking along, but also you can also do walking this way, as in one person walking along. And then you're really emphasizing the fact that you are walking, as opposed to just meandering along and just going along. Da, 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 da. Here I'm saying I'm walking. So that's the inverted V. The bent V is used a lot of times for animals. This is a sign for squirrel. Let's do squirrel. Squirrel in your yard. And he's just squirreling along. Just squirreling. That's the end. This is the sign you use for little animals for scurrying along. Closed hand. You use for grasping, but here's an ASL pun, but it's the real sign, but it's a pun. Shakespeare, like you're shaking a spear. Shakespeare. The claw hand you use often for buildings. So if you're describing, if you're giving directions, and you're going to say, there's a building here, and you're going to turn left after the building, you would do, I'm sorry. This means a building is right here. And then you'd say, go here, and then turn left. All right, leave this here as what's called a point of reference. So you establish your building, go, and then you tell the person, you go down here and then turn left. If you're establishing two buildings, and there you can show their relative perspective from each other. So if one building is side by side, or one is further ahead of another, you show that just, and you're setting up these what it looks like. Horns are really horns. They use for, it's really, there are very few signs that you can use, but with horns. Buffalo. I'm sorry. That's not, I'm sorry. Bull. Buffalo as in the animal. Buffalo as in the city. I don't know why. Flat hand, you're talking about something that is flat, like shelves. So you would, so if you're talking about a spice rack, okay, so you would sign shelf, shelf, shelf. The spice that I'm talking about is cinnamon. So it's, I'm specifying that it is on the bottom shelf of the spice rack. Curved hand would be things that aren't necessarily straight like that. Like, for example, mountains. Or waves. Oh, this one. This is the sign, the handshake they're talking about. Okay. And you can use it for things like lipstick. I'm trying to think of the English. This means like period, like I've said my piece, and now I'm done saying, I'm done talking. I'm done. Like I have said everything I'm going to say. Open hand, you often see it in That's really strange. Can you hear me now? Okay, good. I talked about how it can mean one person. But it also could mean something with that shape, like a pencil, like a cigarette. If you want to say, I took her cigarettes, this is a sign for cigarette. I took her cigarette and I cut it in half. And in the bent hand is used for height. It's used for your eyelids in this case. Heavy eyelids, you're falling asleep, drowsy, falling asleep. And then briefly on page 65, jumping ahead a few pages. In 65, they talk about your signing area. And that just means, okay, that just means generally your signing space is right here. The idea is so that the deaf person can fix their gaze in this area, and with their peripheral vision, they're able to see, or not just a deaf person, anybody who's reading sign language is able to see with their periphery. They're able to see signs, they're able to see your mouth and what's going on here. They're able to see facial expressions and facial grammar, and they're able to see finger spelling. So this is your signing space here. All right, and I'm going to stop right here in the white book. Are there any questions at all? All right. I would like to move to the red book, if I may. Okay, does anybody, or would anybody like me to review the signs that are called communication that are in the yellow margin? I'm sorry, not yellow at all, orange margin. Would anybody like me to go back and review those signs? Okay, then I'm going to start on page 42. Best best day. I'm going to use my voice really quickly. I like to get together and play a game, if that's all right. Just purely out of just for fun, not required in any way whatsoever. But is there any time this weekend that we can play a game over Zoom?
Probably.
Sure. We can ask what's everyone is available for.
Okay.
Get back to you and let you know.
I personally have no preference whether it's a Saturday or Sunday. And that's great. That's beautiful. Or what time it would be. You can certainly feel free to pick early morning, late afternoon. I don't care. That makes no difference. But let's play a game.
Sounds great. I'll get back to you with the time.
Isn't that a one movie?
Excellent.
Yeah.
All right, you can go back to meeting.
Mm. Totally voluntary, not necessary. Just fun. This is a sign for fun. It's another one of those two-handed